Assalamu alaikum and good day, everyone. Today we're going to talk about the process of interaction design. Uh, okay, this chapter is very important for everyone to understand in detail because this chapter will guide you through your final project that will give you 50% of your total mark due to MCO. So everybody have to stay in home at home, and that's why I have to change the evaluation schedule and proportion due to MCO. And I combine assignment number 3 and number 2 together, and finally I give you one big assignment that called final project. Okay, so if you're looking into this title, this topic, that the process of interaction design, the things that we're going to talk is about what is involved in interaction design, some practical issues, and then if you're looking into the slide, I already uploaded in our Facebook group. You can download from Google Drive that been linked to my Google Drive. Okay, so what is involved in interaction design? The things that you have to understand on interaction design is the importance of involving user. Okay, so when we're talking about human-computer interaction, you have three elements: human, computer, and interactions. So it must involve user. All right, and then the number two, the degree of user involvement. So how you engage, how depth you engage user involvement in your interaction design process. And what is user-centered approach? Okay, for your final project, I would suggest you to go for user-centered design and usability evaluation. So this chapter will give you in-depth information about how you're going to conduct user-centered design. And of course, in interaction design, they will involve four basic activities. Okay, I will show you what is four basic activities. And some of you may already understand when they go through these lecture notes before this, okay, before our class. And then some practical issue that involve in interaction process design is who are the user, what are the needs, where the alternative came from, because normally as a developer or human computer interaction designer, you have to develop more than one prototype. Okay, this is because we're going to involve a lot of different stakeholders. So if you only have one, there will be a very limited choices that can be made. That's the reason why you have to understand where the alternative came from and how to choose among alternative. All right. Next, how to integrate interaction design activity in the lifecycle model. So if you're looking into this keyword, lifecycle model is one of the user-centered design approach. Yeah. Okay. So number one, what is involved in interaction design? Of course, it's a process. Okay. And then it must have a goal. All right. And normally it's involve few activities, right? And it's also involving a decision making. Okay. So of course you're going to generate something more than one design. Okay. For our final project, you may think about two prototype. Okay, which one is better, right? With your target user, for example. So that reflects to generating alternative and choose between them is part of the key. And then four approaches that are going to be highlighted. Number one is user-centered design. Number two, activity-centered design, system design, and genius design. So this might involve in terms of interaction design. But for you, maybe we are just focused on user-centered design approach. Okay. So why we have to involve user? Of course, we have to think about expectation from management must be realistic, not surprise, and no disappointment. And of course, it's limited timing or timely train, and it's involving a communication. All right. So important of when user also involves some ownership to make sure that what you design will make the stakeholder happy, right? And then in terms of degree of user involvement, you have to think about when you're dealing with user, you have to make sure whether they go for full time, part time, short term, or long term. So these are the degree of user involvements, right? So degree of user involvement will highly depend on the case study, uh, how detailed that you want user to involve in your design process. So this is dissemination devices like newsletter, email, and so on. Or of course, you're going to involve new social media like WhatsApp communications, Facebook communication, Instagram communication with the degree of user involvement. So when you develop a prototype, for example, so you can ask your friends to evaluate them or ask them to give some opinion about what is your proposal. Okay. So what is user-centered design actually? What is user-centered approach? Or maybe we can say like user-centered design approach or method. So normally user-centered approach is based on early focus on user, of course. If you look into the lecture note, early focus on users and tasks. Okay, it is involving directly studying cognitive behavior, anthropomorphics. It's very difficult to pronounce them. Attitudinal characteristic, and then it's also involve empirical measurement, such as user reactions and performance. Okay, so when you design an application, you have to measure the application whether it fulfill or not among the stakeholders, or does the prototype fulfill user requirement. In this case, user is your stakeholder. User is someone that involved in sponsoring your application developments or pay something, or maybe they will be the main user of the prototype, okay, of the system. And it's also involved iterative design, okay. So it means that if you get problem, you have to go back to the previous stage, okay, that called iterative design until the circle is complete. Then you move to different stage, okay. And then this is the 4 basic activities in interaction design that have to be understand by all of you, because you're going to use these 4 basic activities in your final proposal or final project that give you 50% of total mark of this subject. Okay, number 1, you have to conduct activity in identifying needs and establishing requirements. Number 2, you're going to design, or is involving alternative design as well. And then you're going to build a prototype, interactive version of your design that based on number 2 activities. And then the last one, you're going to evaluate your design. So it might be involved 1 or 2. Normally in this case, we have 2 prototypes that need to be evaluated. Okay, so this is a very important slide. This is slide number, if I'm not mistaken, is number 6. Oh, sorry. Let's check back. This is slide number 7. Yeah, number 7. Right. You have to remember slide number 7 is one of the most important, and also slide number 6. This is slide number 6. This is slide number 7. Right. If you're looking into the connection between those 4 basic activities, the first one is identify needs and establishing requirements. It's the most important, and it's the starter. Then you move to the left. Okay, you have, after you identify what is the actual needs of the user, then you move to design, or in this case you also involve design alternative. It means that more than one. Right, then you have to build the interactive version. Okay, let's say in the design you got problem, you have to return back to the stage number 1, which is identify needs and establish a requirement, and go back to alternative design. Okay, in this case, after you finish design, you go to build interactive version and then evaluate. But if something wrong in evaluation, you have to go back to the first stage until you got it done and you go for the final project. For this case, final prototype. Okay, so if you're looking into the yellow box, it shows the explanation of every stages. Number 1, identify the people who will use the product, what they will use it for, and under what condition they will use. Okay, what is the activities involved in the first stage? Okay, it might involve something, activities like your survey, interview, or maybe observation, things like that. So that's will involve in the first stage. Next, if you go to the second stage, design, it identify conceptual model, task analysis, user analysis that must be made for the product to be successful. In this case, you have to design not just the prototype itself, but in this case, you haven't designed any prototype yet, but you're going to identify what is the task analysis, the conceptual model of your prototype. Okay, then only you design them. Okay, this part of the process may be done in stage building for a rough concept prototype to complete design, like paper prototyping, slide presentation, and prototyping. Normally, we use paper prototyping terms in order to highlight what is the prototype of your proposed system. After that, you can use. After that, in this stage, you're able to go with two different prototype. Number one is low fidelity prototype. Number two is high fidelity prototype. Okay, then you're going to evaluate them under usability evaluation. Based on usability evaluation, they have a few things like usability testing, heuristic evaluations, and so on. But actually, the most popular one is usability testing. Okay. Then some practical issue need to be understand who are the user, what do you mean by needs, things like that. You have to understand and all the practical issue. Okay, who is the stakeholder? I want you to read through this slide, and I will show you the original one. Okay, how to make sure you understand well about this title. So if you're looking into a stakeholder, I would suggest you to think about Lazada or maybe Shopee, because that one is a today or current technology. When involving a stakeholder, you also have to understand the stakeholder can be divided into many person. Okay, like supplier, local shop owner, managers, and so on. And then it's also part of in the system. You have to have a checkout operators, and this is the customer. So the whole set of who are the stakeholder in this slide, showing that in involving not just a supplier, buyer, or customer, and also is involving some operators. Okay. So this is what do you mean by the needs? There's a lot of things need to be understand, but I want you to go through this slide. Okay, let's see. What do you mean by needs? User rarely know what is possible, because when you investigate user requirements, you have to talk with user, not based on yourself, but it's okay if you are the user, but in normal case, you have to talk with user. All right. If you are the user, it might be some bias elements or bias issue occur, because you cannot based on your own perspective. So you have to talk with people that involve as a user. All right. So looking existing tasks in terms of their context, what information do they require, who collaborated to achieve the task, and so on. Okay. Normally, the keyword here is to understand the user behavior, right, towards your proposed system, or their existing behavior towards the system that already there, or maybe you can give some idea about, ask them to imagine things like that. So that's the way how you investigate user needs, normally through questionnaire, through interview, or observations. Okay. So in terms of generating alternative, you have to stick with kind of what humans already know, what they know works, and but consider alternative is important to break out the box. Something like helping people. Let's say if normally if you want to handle the task, it might involve 10 minutes, but with alternative design, you can make a kit around less than 10 minutes, let's say 7 minutes, for example. So this is something that give a better alternative, or maybe a good way in producing your proposal. Okay, so this is a few project. I think this is quite old project. I just skip them, and then how to choose among alternative. Let's say you have two prototype. or maybe more than that, you also have to think about the metrics in terms of usability goal. Okay, so in usability goal, if you're looking into what is usability goal, somehow it give you something effective, efficient, and something satisfactions. Okay, normally three keyword here: efficient, effective, and satisfaction. So if you trash down here, you see how safe, utility, effectiveness, efficiency, learnability, and memorability. This is all usability goal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 can be assumed as a usability goal. All right, set of criteria. So this is something to test among the alternative, which one is better, and then test whether which one is more effectiveness, more efficiency, more learnability, more memorability in terms of when you're using more than one alternative or design. So from there, you can see this design is better compared with this design, for example. Okay, and then how to integrate interaction design under model. I think what is important now, you already understand user-centered design that based on life cycle model. This is the one. Okay, this one, right? This is the most important slide for this title, and I recommend you to know in detail about this topic. Okay, right. So when you're going to integrate them, you're going to involve design activity in life cycle. That means 4 activities. Number 1, identify user needs, design alternative, evaluations, and develop. Sorry, again, identify user need, design alternative. Oh, I forgot about it. But if you're looking back one by one, okay, identify user need, design alternative, build interactive version, and evaluate. There will be 4 activities involved. Okay, so that's the way how you're going to integrate interaction design in other models. But if you're looking into other models, you can see a lot of software engineering model also involve what we call interaction model, such as IXD, means that interaction X is user experience design in practice. Okay, so agile development is one of the most popular in software engineering, but it doesn't show any specific for user interaction design. So when you combine agile development, user interaction will be part one of the spring. Okay, one of the spring in agile development. All right. So when you go through yourself about agile UX techniques, you can see, okay, agile UX is a combination on agile and UX. Google Design Sprint is quite new, but I think you can escape this topic. And Lean UX is quite new because it's involved use case explorations, and originally Lean UX has been introduced by Toyota manufacturing model. It involved agile development method as well. Okay, and of course it can reduce a lot of time, and the aiming of Lean UX is to maximize or optimize the manufacturing time. Okay, so you can see one by one Agile UX and then user research. I think this is a Agile UX. You can see, yeah, parallel track approach to Agile UX, cycle 0, and then implement high development cost, low user interface cost features, code, and then test, code, test, code, test. That's the concept of agile. Code, design, code, design. This is the way that agile has been applied with UX, which is user experience. So you can see adapting usability investigation for development, journal of usability study. Okay, I would suggest you to go to these papers and read what is agile UX. Okay, so by history, none of the final exam question asks student about Agile UX. Maybe this year we might ask you about Agile UX. Okay. So these are the things and documentation. This is okay. Documentation. This is a low fidelity prototype. It's about user journey. If you're looking about user journey, there's a user journey map that can be considered as well. User journey map. User journey map. Okay, I can give you example. So you can see this is one of the good example of user journey. Okay, you can see this is from Pinterest to show what is all about user journey, to show one by one. Okay, if you go one by one, I just click them to show you what is the user journey, right? There's a lot of tools for you to have in user journey. Okay, all right, so let's show you what is user journey. I haven't kept the user journey, but at least you get some idea what is user journey: where, choose, parking, order, wait. Something like related with how user move their or their behavior towards the system. Okay, so that's this user journey. And then it's also involving, when you're going to develop a prototype, you can see this is using a sticky notes. It will guide the user in terms of, okay, this is the right way or this is the wrong way. So you just can stick and unstick the papers. Okay, you see the papers, red sticky note and so on. You just unstick and stick them, and to design the user journey. Right. So this is one of them on user experience, and in terms of how you design them, good experience. It's about customer journey, and you can record their experience, okay, by using icon like good experience and not good experience like this. Okay, you can see during the booking how many people have a good experience. One, two, three, four, five, six. Six out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 10. 6 out of 10 are not happy, are happy with their journey within the prototype. This is the way that you setting the emotion of user journey. And for customer train application, that they divided into booking, departure, onboard, and arrival. So that's the features of the prototype system. Okay. Right. So the Lean UX is involving originally is a combination of Lean and UX. Okay, it's about validate and sketch prototype. Validate, sketch. Right. It's almost like agile, but I think Lean UX is quite new. Okay. All right, so this is the Google Design Spirit. Skip them, and this is one of the example of use case exploration canvas that you have to set the goal. Okay, one persona is something that people or the user, and then they have their goal, and then they have pains, gain. Okay, in terms of product support and so on. Okay, what is persona? I will let you know after this. Not in this topic. Okay. So design pattern have a lot, something like this. Okay, pattern that involving some graphic enhancement as well. Okay, tool for interaction design that you can use is quite old, Balsamiq and Azura, but still there. You can still use Balsamiq and Azure. But I will let you know. One of them you might involve in Proto.io, or maybe Adobe XD, and I will introduce you the new one after this. Okay, and the summary of this lecture, you have to understand 4 basic activities. Number 1, establishing requirement, design alternative, prototyping, and evaluation. And the most important thing here, you have to understand this slide, which is slide number 40 here. This is the most important slide. Okay, and then what is user-centered design? And based on 3 principles: early focus of user, empirical measurement, and interactive design. It means that you have to focus with user, you have to know how to measure in terms of something like their effectiveness, their efficiency, their satisfaction, how you're going to measure them. And of course, it's involved iterative design, means that if you not fulfill certain stage, you have to go back to the previous stage. Okay, just go back again to show you what does it mean by those 3 things. Okay, these are the one most important one: identify needs, design alternative, build interactive version, and evaluates. Okay, number 1, you have to make sure interaction design or user-centered design focus on user. So it involving in here observation, interview, and survey. And then you're going to involve how you're going to evaluate your application that must be measurable, that based on efficiency, effectiveness, and satisfaction rate. You have to know how to measure them. And the last part is, can't remember again. All right, the last part is the one that you have to make sure iterative design. Okay, what is iterative design? Means that it will go back to the previous stage if the stage is not fulfill the objective of uh, the application. Okay, for example, iterative design, you have to go back. If the version is not good, go back here. If the design alternative is not well, you have to go back to identify needs and establish a requirement. That's the meaning of iterative design. Okay, right. That's all for this presentation. So I'll stop here.